Sorry, I was just gonna.
It's crazy now, but I just to finalize what you're saying, I think it's trust, right? Trust the universe that things are gonna work out. That's what I'm learning. This March madness, it's been for me, for my business, for everything else. And I'm like, okay, trust, it's coming. Trust things are gonna, and end up, things end up working out, right? Like this month has been great for us as far as, like we were able to dispose some properties. I mean, my co-livings, went live. It's amazing. So it's just the process of building a business and going through all of the emotions. It's a lot. I mean, we've been there. It's not our first time doing the business, right? Having to hire, train. It's crazy.
But we still have that fear, and that's what I think.
Exactly, but
The
that's
fear
part of
got
the
bigger.
the yeah. But I saw Nick is already here. I'm so excited. I wanted him to come in. And guys, if you have any questions, use the React. And he pretty much is gonna be doing his presentation for a little bit, and then we're gonna open up for Q&As. But any
And
comments, anything that you guys have, please, yes. I'm
and
very
Chris, didn't
excited.
didn't a lot of people ask us last week? Was it last week that about the LLC and corporate structure, right? We had a lot of
Yes.
people asking about those
Yes, and I'm
things.
very curious too. Like I want to learn from me too, the corporate, how do you structure everything and to get my business better. Okay, Nick, let me have
Yes,
you
Chris.
come on in.
Right.
How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. The audio is working right just to make sure. I just got a brand new computer they set me up with. And I was on the biggest webinar that I ever did a couple of days ago, and all of a sudden the audio went out, and I hurried and got it back on. But I just want to make sure everything's coming in, audio, visual, we're looking good.
Yes,
Good,
everything's
good.
perfect.
But yeah, and I just sent a request to share the slides, Pat or Chris. But first and foremost, I'm beyond excited to be here. I had an opportunity to talk to Chris briefly yesterday, and needless to say, Chris is serious, right? Chris is serious about her real estate business endeavor. She's serious about making money. She's also serious about making sure that the community that she's cultivating learns from some of her past mistakes, to make it even that much easier and more efficient to get to where you want to be with your businesses. The silver lining, you'd almost think that me and Pat synced up before this. Pat, you said a couple of phrases that, by the way, I appreciate that you guys allowed me to come on a little bit early. It was motivating for myself. The words of wisdom I appreciate. But Pat made the comment, and I'm going to butcher this, but something in the realm of the risk of jumping the fall is always smaller, and it sometimes deters us away from taking the jump, if you will, out of fear of the risk. But after the fact, when I think you look back on a lot of things, the risk is somewhat mitigated in the grand scheme of things. But with that being said, what is that we're going to be discovering today on the legal, financial, and tax ends of the business? I hope that you all feeling that that risk is even that much smaller, right? I'm going to make sure to touch base on a couple of different things that I would like to think that every single person here, at the very least, is going to feel that they have the opportunity to make money with their business right out of the gate and regardless, by simply saving money on your personal taxes. Okay, so we're going to focus on the business entity structure side of things, and we're going to make sure that you all understand how to get the max asset protection, the max tax advantages, and the max privatization. Okay, and then as I mentioned, the silver lining here is make money by saving money. Okay, then secondly is on the financial side of things. Most individuals aren't aware of this, but we actually have two federally sanctioned credit profiles, right? So we're going to make sure that you all have an understanding how to get away from being the personal bank to your business, right? And then lastly is on the tax mitigation side of things, tax preparation, right? Chris said March Madness, and I love March Madness. I can't stop looking at my
Oh, my
bracket.
kids, yeah, my kids
It's
too.
fun. It's good. It's some good basketball. It's fun. But March Madness, and then she says that, and then brings up taxes. I'm like, God, maybe there's more to this naming of March Madness. It's taxes, right? If you're anything like me, and I'm assuming you all are to a certain extent, you're entrepreneurs, and I live in the tax world. We do about 20,000 tax returns here on an annual basis. And I personally, every time I have to go pay taxes, it makes me close to sick, right? So we want to make sure that all of you understand how to keep as much money in your pockets as possible, right? It's not about, as you can see on the slide, what you it's about what you keep, right? That's our slogan. And I'm not even just talking about in the aspect of business, on a personal level as well, right? You guys are going to come to find out a lot of what we're discussing on an inherent basis affects you on a personal level. All right. So the first thing we're going to do is get up to speed with the tax reform. And for the most part, everything that we're going to be discussing today is predicated off the tax reform. And we're going to make sure that you all have a relative understanding of some of the fundamental changes that happened and how they directly affect sectors of self-employment. And then we're going to touch base on legal, financial, and tax topics. All right. Now, first things first, as I mentioned, the tax reform. Right? So January 1, 2018, Tax Cuts Job Act was implemented. It's the most recent tax reform. The biggest change with the tax code, we no longer have the ability to offset our tax liability with tax deductible expenses operating in self-employment sectors as an individual. If that makes sense, great. You know, it's a huge change. If it doesn't, of course, we'll hear in the next couple moments. Okay, now we're going to start on the business entity side of things, right? This is the very first thing that everybody needs to make sure they have dialed in is their corporate structure. Okay, so we're going to be discussing a specific type of business entity. More particular than that is a specific type of LLC. Okay, so if everybody wants to write down holding company, right? Now I also have a quick question for everybody. And if I can just get a response in the chat, please. If you currently have a pre-existing business entity, so that means if you have an LLC, if you have an S Corp, if you have a C Corp, if you currently have a pre-existing corporate structure, put a 1 in the chat if you do. And then if you do not, put a 2 in the chat. 1 if you do, 2 if you do not. Thank you for some of those quick correspondences. Okay, very good. So there are a handful of you that do have pre-existing corporate structures. Okay, now with that being said, the reason why I propped that question before we start diving into things, regardless if you put a 1 or you put a 2, it doesn't change the value nor the applicability of anything it is that I'm going to be discussing with you on the business entity. Okay, so this is the very, very top of your corporate hierarchy. Okay, so once again, the holding company. So what the holding company is an LLC that is structured out of one of our 4 haven states. Now, what the 4 haven states are, as you can see on the slide, Alaska, Nevada, Wyoming, and Delaware. Okay, Alaska, Nevada, Wyoming, Delaware. The reason why they're referred to as haven states, they're the most corporate-friendly states in the country. Okay, they have the most corporate-friendly bylaws. 3 advantages of the corporate bylaws. And for those of you that are taking notes, number 1 is the max asset protection. Right. So because of these corporate bylaws, you literally cannot have any better asset protection than you do out of those 4 states. Okay. Number 2, max tax advantages. Okay. So they're all 0 income tax states. We're also going to elaborate in great depths in regards to the holding company's operating agreement and the different tax functionalities that consists of. Number 2 is max tax advantages. Number 3, max privatization. Okay. So the haven states are referred to as privatization states. What that means is it's not public record who the members of the entity are, right? So it gives you the maximum anonymity, right? So at the very, very top of your corporate hierarchy, you have your holding company that gives you the max asset protection, the max tax advantages, and the max privatization. And then from that point, as you progress with your business endeavor, you diversify, you acquire assets, eventually you'll have other operational LLCs in place that are owned by the holding company, right? As you can see on the slide, those are referred to as subsidiary LLCs. Okay, and all subsidiary means is plain simple, it's a corporate structure that's owned by a holding company. Now, the reason why you do your corporate hierarchy in this capacity is it kills as many birds with 1 stone as necessary. Just for the very simple fact, every LLC that is now owned by the holding company now inherently has the max asset protection, the max tax advantages, and the max privatization. All right, once again, it kills as many birds with 1 stone as necessary. Now, for those of you that referenced a 1 in the chat, that just pre-existing corporate structure just falls underneath the new holding company, and poof, it now has those advantages. Right, so we're going to make sure that you guys understand some of the different functionalities of the holding company. All right, we on the same page so far? So far, so good. Utilize your chat, utilize your audio.
Yes.
All right, now we are going to start on very ground level. Bear with me in the beginning. It might be a little bit redundant for a few of you. Hopefully, if anything, it's a little bit of a refresher. But there are just a handful of individuals that don't have any type of pre-existing corporate structure. So I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page from top to bottom, right? So first and foremost, the acronym LLC stands for Limited Liability Company. Now, the very first element in which the LLC does is it legitimizes, right? It's the legalization that you started a business. Very simple concept. I would like to think that probably just about 40 of us on here assumed that's what the LLC would do, right? Legalize. Reason I bring it up and I emphasize it is once again the tax reform, right? State and federal government bodies, they clearly want self-employment sectors sanctioned and bounded by laws. Right out of the gate, legal intent, legalization. Okay? The fundamental function of the LLC. If anything, this is probably what you're all familiar with. If you want to write down separation and protection, or if you want to get technical about it, you can write down corporate veil of protection. All right, so LLC separates, protects you, all your personal assets from any type of liability associated from the business. Right, so in simplest terms, you have a corporate veil, you have a layer of asset protection that separates your personal assets and your business assets. Right, so if anything were to ever happen with the business, they can't go and liquidate the personal assets, right? Once again, there's a layer of asset protection that separates the asset classes. Okay, so that's the fundamentals of every LLC right there, right? Very first element, legalization, fundamental function, separation and protection. Okay, now I do want to pause here for a brief moment just because there are a good amount of you that have pre-existing corporate structures, right? And there's a lot of misconceptions about LLCs, right? There's 70,000 pages of the tax code, flooded with different tax functions, tax provisions, tax statuses. Needless to say, there's a lot of different methodologies to go about structuring an LLC. Okay, so all an LLC does by default is two things. It legalizes your business and it gives you a corporate veil of protection, right? Default Secretary of State LLC does two things: legalization, separation, and protection, right? In other words, you're paying the state a fee to protect a business asset, right? So asset protection is important. However, I personally think what's the most important is the tax advantages. Okay, so that's all obtained in the operating agreement. The operating agreement is the structure of the LLC. Okay, that's how you reap specific benefits and recognition. Okay, that's really what's of importance, and that's what we're about to dive into now, are the functions of the holding company's operating agreement. All right, now the reason why the tax status, the NAICS code, is so critical is that's what gets you the legal credit of the endeavor as well as the arena of business in which you're a part. Okay, which in turn gives you up to 250 different tax deductible business expenses, up to 250 different, and we will make sure that you guys have access to all the different sanction deductions. I will send you guys out a list of all the different sanction deductions, but just to give you an example of a few: all your home-based expenses, internet bills, phone bills, power bills. As long as you have internet connection, you're in a viable position to be operating the business. So gas, mileage, all tax deductible. And once again, we will make sure that everybody has a complete list of all the different sanctioned expenses. Okay, now, the one thing that I do also want to do is put a little bit of context behind expenses. A lot of times when I'm speaking to a community and there's some new business endeavor, there's some new business owners, one of the first things that they're thinking of is like, Nick, I'm brand new. I don't know if I even have business expenses. I haven't even gone operational really. Right? This is still somewhat a thought. I haven't started to monetize. So I don't know where I have these business expenses. So what I like to bring to the surface is what I refer to as anyway expenses, hence the verbiage anyways, expenses that we have anyways. Okay, so what I'm a huge proponent of is what I refer to as securing the lowest hanging fruit wins. And one of the easiest ways to do that is understand how to repurpose or reallocate certain aspects of everyday life to be incorporated into your business. And it could literally be the difference of saving you 5, 10, 15, 20 plus $1,000 on your taxes, right? So let's touch base on some of those anyway expenses. We're all here via Zoom. Right, so I'd like to think it's safe to say that we all have internet at this point. So let's take a common monthly bill like an internet bill. I know mine's like $100. We'll give or take. We'll just call it $100 for sake of math and conversation. And then let's take 10 other relative bills: phone bills, power bills, utility, food, gas, mileage. Right, 10 relative bills of $100. We'll call it. So 10 bills of $100. So 10 times 100 is 1,000. Right? Now times that 1,000 by 12 months in a year. Okay, that's $12,000 of what now are considered tax deductions from anyway expenses. Okay, adds up very, very quick. Okay, now next, I'm going to actually show you the application behind these deductions. So this next function, for whatever it's worth, my personal opinion, most important function of all. Okay, now if everybody wants to write down a pass-through function, and I also have another quick question for everybody, if I can just get a response in the chat, please. If you are currently generating income outside of your real estate business endeavor, so that means if you have conventional W-2, 1099, retirement, if you are generating income outside of your business endeavor, put a 1 in the chat if you are, and then if you are not, put a 2 in the chat. So 1 if you are, 2 if you are not. So if you have W-2, 1099, retirement. Let a few of you correspond. And I highly encourage interactiveness, open dialogue. Generally speaking, if one of you has a question, it's the exact same one that the others have as well. So utilize your chat, utilize your audio.
Hey, Nick, I got a quick question for you. Maybe you answer it down the road, but so what is the difference between a LLC and an LLLP as a partnership in terms of the structure? Is there that big of a difference?
So from like an actual functionality standpoint, no. An LLP, hence the P, is a partnership. So that's going to be one of the fundamental differences. But from like the capability side of things, not so much. LLPs, generally speaking, are more meant and built for specific type of professions that are like in the realm of attorneys, doctors, medical practices. Like there's certain types of businesses that based off the tax code require that you have an LLP, right? It's for certain type of professions.
Yeah, the LLLP, the 3 L's with the P, yes.
Yep. So not so much applicable to real estate, right? It's a complex structure that for day-to-day operational type of business like this, not A, necessary, but B, advantageous.
Okay.
All right. Okay. Thank you for those correspondences, and it will make sense why I just inquired about that question here in a moment. Not only that, but based off these responses, 10 times more important is the holding company's tax functions. So I'm going to give you the by the book definition first, then I'll come back, break it down in a way that I find to be a little bit easier to conceptualize. So the pass-through function allows you to legally offset your gross taxable income with all of your business's tax deductible expenses. Simplify and cut out the verbiage. If you just want to write down, apply all deductions against all income. Okay, apply all deductions against all income. Okay, so that is exactly what this function allows you to do. Okay, so you're now able to apply all of your new business deductions, once again, those 250 different tax deductible expenses that you have with your holding company, not just against the income that you're generating from the real estate business endeavor, but against your overall gross taxable income across the board, okay, including against the income that you're all respectively generating with whichever reason it is that you referenced a 1 in the chat, right? Against the W-2s, 1099s, retirements, if you're married, filing jointly against your spouse's income, against all income, right? So huge benefit on a personal level, right? If you were to think about the pass-through function, analytically, it can be nothing more than a tax shelter for your personal sources of income, right? As I made that statement earlier, make sure you make money with your real estate business just by simply saving money on your personal taxes, right? As much of a paradox as this may sound, but there's a handful of you where you may potentially have the most to gain from the LLC's tax functions is with your personal sources of income. Okay, let me put a little bit of context behind that statement as well as the slide that you're looking at. So
I was going to ask you, Nick, about that. The two different slides here with the top and the bottom.
Yep.
If you can explain the difference.
Yep. So as you can see on the slide, to put a little bit of context behind this, the individual on the top is an individual who grosses $65,000 a year of personal income. Okay, whether that's W-2, 1099, retirement, makes zero difference. But $65,000 a year personal income. However, the individual on the top does not have an LLC that consists of these functions, does not. Okay, so with that being said, Uncle Sam comes in, takes at minimum 26%. In other words, the IRS comes in, takes a little over $13,000 away from this individual every year in the form of taxes. Example on the bottom, it's the exact same individual, right? $65,000 a year personal income. However, individual on the bottom does have an LLC that consists of these functionalities, which opens up the gates to the different tax advantages that we're discussing, and they're able to get their tax liability down to a little bit under $8,000. Saves this individual, roughly speaking, $8,000, or excuse me, $5,500 on their personal taxes. Right? Adds up quick. That's 1 year.
That's a lot of money.
A lot of money. Adds up quick. That's a down payment on a house, right? Right. But all deduction, that's all income, very, very critical, right? Make sure that one makes sense. As I mentioned, common phrase that I hope you all leave with today, by having the proper corporate structure, you can all make money with your businesses right out of the gate and regardless by simply saving money on your personal taxes. You all referenced a one. All right, now you're going to be learning different proven tax methodologies, strategies from Chris and Pat to learn how to go make money, but also whether you go make $20,000 from real estate investments or you save $20,000 when you go to file your taxes, they weigh the same. Secure the lowest hanging fruit wins to mitigate that potential fear of drop that you have that Pat was initially referencing, right? Don't be fearful to jump based off of not having a parachute. You have a parachute very much so readily at hand, right? And Pat, also on the LLP, just to provide like a little bit of clarity there. So LLP is complex structures for partners. Maybe you and Chris are partners in a certain different type of aspects where you guys have like a lot of real estate holdings, where you also have like an attorney that referred to an LLP for really maneuverability standpoints, right? The way that you want to think about an LLP, and the reason why I still honestly don't go the LLP route, I'm more than happy to talk offline about your guys' corporate structure. It's a complex corporate structure to begin with. It's basically a C corp, where you are not needing to pay the double taxation like the C Corp does, right? You avoid the double taxation element with the LLP, but still a very complex structure that could also potentially limit what you're doing with your tax advantages. So we can talk offline about that. That's also just from maneuverability standpoints.
Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm. Great question is, Nick, do I have to make money with my real estate business to qualify for these advantages? Right? Do I have to actually make money with my business in order to take these tax advantages? No, it's applicable regardless, right? In no capacity is what it is that we're discussing contingent on the success of your business, right? Hence the tax shelter comment. I actually think that it's equal, if not easier at times, to make the case that the LLC is more important and of more value if you look at the glass half empty, right? So let's do that real quick. So let's say worst case scenarios happen and either you didn't monetize the business in 2024 or worst case scenarios happen, you don't monetize the business, right? In general, there's worst case scenarios. If that were to be the case, 10 times more important is the holding LLC that we're discussing. Just for the simple fact, well, that's really when you want to recoup your investments come tax season, right? That's really when you want to apply your new 250 different tax deductible expenses against your personal sources of income, your W-2, your 1099, your retirement, your spouse's income, your personal sources of income to create that legal tax shelter. Make money by saving money. Okay, now, next is the pass-through function works in two capacities, right? So we understand how it benefits you on a personal level with all of your personal sources of income. It also works vice versa. By having those other sources of income, it also protects your business investments. Okay, let's dive into that, starting with the initial investments that many of you have outlaid for either training courses. I know there's a lot of sub-2 members here, software, subscriptions, newsletters, anything in that realm. Right, on average, probably about $1,000 to $10,000+ easily that you could all come up with that fall in that type of outside education realm is what we're discussing right now, is what it's labeled as by the IRS. These investments are by default categorized by the IRS as outside education, right? So the IRS thinks you've either decided to go back to school, you're not going through an accredited university, or you have upwards of a one to 10 plus $1,000 hobby on your hands, right? Indifferent to them, personal expenditure. Bring the tax code full circle one last time. No longer do we have the ability to take itemized deductions as an individual, right? So I do emphasize this just because personally find it to be of the more critical for a lot of you here. But with the holding LLC, these investments are all now 100% tax deductible as a legal business startup expense. Okay, 100% tax deductible as a legal business startup expense. Okay, that's why a lot of our partners like Pace, Chris, Pat, have us work with their community in the capacity in which we do. So regardless of how you fare with the businesses, even though you all do great, investments are initially protected. Most importantly, you've got the proper recognition for what they are. And also keep in mind, that's not just a tax deductible expense you're itemizing. That's a 100% provision. You want these investments coming back to you come tax season regardless. And that is everything that goes into the holding LLC right there. It sounded like it resonated with you all well. I'm going to open it up for a brief Q&A, and then we will transition to the financial side of the discussion. We'll make sure that you guys have some fundamentals around getting away from the personal bank to your business. Before we transition to the financial side of the discussion, is there any questions that I could touch base on for anybody?
I have more of a comment than a question. It's just because it's one of those things where, we come from the small business realm, and it's always like you we always what's the best way I can say it? It's like you ever see that things like you want to save money, but we're being cheap. Especially I'm speaking for me, right? I want to save money, but I'm being cheap, right? It's like using a contract. I use the contract standpoint from real estate standpoint. So you use a cheaper contract, but then you end up always having to pay more because, like you say, it's not the money that goes out, but it's also the money that you save. So I think that, and thank you so much for Nick for coming on, Nick. But it's those things that we think we know, but sometimes we don't know, right? We hear corporate structure time and time and time again, but it's so hard for us to really understand it until we actually take the jump and actually dive into it. But at the same time, we're like, oh, let me go see, Aunt Sue. She has an accountant or a bookkeeper or somebody who can do this, but they're not really saving you the money because they're just not. They're not going through all those different things because they just don't know. And I just think I just want to kind of use that analogy a little bit because that's what I see, especially for me, time and time again. Like you want to go
100%.
cheaper, but you end up spending more money.
The thing is, Pat, a lot of what you said in the very beginning, as well as what you just referenced there, just beyond silver linings to everything it is that we're discussing, between like the fear of the jump because the fall, but as well as some of the other things that you just referenced, as far as like we'll use cheap even like in context. I get
Yes,
what
yes,
we're
right,
saying here, right?
yes.
But the reason I reference that is what individuals sometimes don't really understand is when I say make money by saving money, it's beyond simple, but with even a little bit of a thought behind it, it starts to accelerate. Like, for example, I speak to individuals. I'm one of three people to start Prime Corporate Services. We have 222, we have almost over 220 employees, do almost 100,000 corporate structures at this point. I was an individual that was a corporate advisor. I was one of the first corporate advisors. So I worked with small businesses all day, every day. Right. And what I slowly just started realizing is based off of math, is the easiest way to get across. Explaining math is sometimes the easiest way to get across what it is that I'm trying to say with like make money by saving money, but also back to like the initial reference around like being cheap on certain things or conservative on certain things, thinking that we're saving money costs you way more money in the long run. Like there's
Exactly.
individuals here that like are hesitant to go do sub two because it's a large investment depending the context or your circumstances. And they'll veer away from like furthering education and furthering things that are going to be the difference in driving force between whether they actually succeed with the business or not. But they
Exactly.
won't do it, but not realizing by having a proper corporate structure, in all reality, based off of what it does to your W-2 and how much it saves you, you're still in a net positive. If you had to spend $8,800 to do a course, but it ended up all said and done, ended up saving you $10,000 on your taxes, you won in both fronts.
Exactly.
You're already in the net. Congratulations. You're one of few people that made money with the business already, but you also just got the best mentorship and the best support you can have to learn how to actually accelerate that business. You won on both fronts, right? So this, like I said, silver lining across the board, I think, is a lot of things you're saying, Pat. So I appreciate the
Nick,
yeah.
I have a question. Like, are you gonna go over like how to set up? Like, all of us here, we do real estate, we buy properties. Like, I'm gonna tell about myself. I am buy and hold. I have rental properties. I have a couple of short terms and different kind of properties. And how are you gonna go over how you set up the holding company and what should be, where the property management goes in there and how they you know what I mean? How do you do the waterfall or how do you set all of this up? Are you gonna go over that?
Yeah, so
Yes.
I don't, so not in the extent that I think that you're referencing right now, just because I don't think that we want to make something more dense and complex than it needs to be, unless I have a handful of people here that are making 6, 7 figures right now. And if you do, put a one in the chat. And even then, I would say it's probably not necessary, but I'm as happy to get as complex as necessary. But a lot of times, Chris, what I've
Yeah.
realized over the years is complexity met with complexity leads to confusion, right? So like Rob's, right? You're talking about life insurance and things of the nature of that. Absolutely. Quick question here. And if I can just get a response in the chat, how many of you here currently have a holding company? Put a one in the chat if you do. If you currently have a holding company, put a one in the chat. And if you don't, put a two in the chat. Right? So if you currently have a holding company, one, and then if you don't, put a two. So there's a handful that do. So I'm assuming a lot of you are with sub two. Okay, next thing. And then about half of you. Okay, next question. If you currently have a trust, if you currently have an estate plan in place, put a one. All right, if you currently have an estate plan, put a one. Okay, so not as many have the estate plan. If you do not have a holding company and an estate plan in place, thinking about additional corporate structures to be part of your hierarchy, a little bit of the cart before the horse, right? Not only that, but like when we're talking about life insurance, Rob's accounts, and things of the nature of that, that's not what we do over here, right? We're on the corporate structure side of things. And then we will touch base on getting away from the personal bank to the business here in a moment if we have time. But this is eventually your corporate structure, right? And Chris, the other thing that I really like to really highlight, simplicity. Even though like you can have the most complex structure,
Yeah.
simplify it.
I like
You
it
don't,
simple.
like
I
it's
like it
simple,
simple.
right? And the simple doesn't mean it's not effective. And what I mean by simple, it doesn't mean that it's in the literal sense not complex from like the attorney aspect who's drawing it up and like the ownership. But I'm talking for the sense of understanding how everything fluidly works with one another. Simple, right? Holding company, max asset protection, max tax advantages, max privatization. Everything from that point waterfalls down to your operational subsidiary entities. Your subsidiary entities are going to be predicated off what your operations are. You'll have subsidiaries that are for active income, you'll have subsidiaries that are for passive income, and you'll have subsidiaries that are potentially for investment income, right? You separate your business operations based off of your different endeavors, right? As you can somewhat see on this slide. And then from that point, at the very top of your corporate hierarchy, everyone here needs an estate plan, at the minimum a trust, right? It's the only way that we can legally avoid probate, right? The trust eventually owns all your assets. For those of you that maybe aren't 100% familiar with probate, it's death taxes, right? When we pass away, the state that we live in, like the literal state that we live in, is equally entitled to your assets as your beneficiaries are, right? And how they go about deciding who gets the assets, litigation, right? Lawsuit. And guess who, generally speaking, is the presiding party in a litigation? The party that has more money. And guess who unfortunately usually has more money? the state, right? So to avoid that whole debacle, you need a trust, right? So if you own your own home, if you have children and you don't have a trust, bump that up to the priority list. All right. And then from that point, life insurance, right? We're actually in the process right now of building out an internal life insurance division. So eventually we will have the ability of accommodating you guys on that front. We're not quite there. But for the vast majority of you, that's what's necessary for the time being, right?
Nick,
Now,
can I ask just for the, I guess for our audience there, right? Because it's just one of those things where, and I'm gonna bring it down, like I'm gonna bring it down as if I was in the third grade, right? Simplify.
yeah,
So people see this and in their minds are like, oh my gosh, there's LLC 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They're like, oh my gosh, this is too much for me. This number one, I can't afford it. I don't have all this real estate. I don't have that. But I know our audience. Our audience is a mature audience, right? So we get to that point, like you say, life insurance. We get to that point where trust, death, all those things that we talk about, right? It's like where, I can guarantee at least 90% of our audience out there. Guys, please let me know. But if I'm heading the right direction, you guys want to hear. But those are the fear. Those are the fear of jumping and taking the dive. Say, okay, do I do that? Because we're all here, we're learning, and people were learning, and people were not, uh, they're not necessarily going to take the jump, right? They're just going to see it like, okay, no, this is great information, and they're just going to hold it a while until something happens. It's like insurance. Like for I had on my rental property recently a fire. It's one of those things where I never thought that, you always think about it, but I never thought it was going to happen until it happened. So to simplify that, guys, can I hear it on the side chat there? Are those some of the questions that you guys are having? Maybe you know about it, you're not pulling the trigger, but it's just, does it, because like you say, you actually save more than you actually will spend if you actually do it right. So I just want to kind of bring that down a little bit more.
I couldn't agree any more, right? Of course, like I said, we can get beyond complex if need be. Somebody sent like their rollover chart. Yeah, that's very much that's all based off your custodian, just so you guys are all aware of as far as like how that works with your corporate structures from like a self-employment standpoint. But with that being said, I can't continue just to echo and reference back to the initial example that Pat mentions around like the jump because the fear of the fall. You all have a parachute at minimum, right? And I think that if we were to take it one step further, and we only got about 10 minutes, I would say that a lot of you have like a jetpack with it that you're not aware of. I made this comment in the very beginning. We have two federally sanctioned credit profiles, right? So we have our personal FICO credit profile. We all know what that is, our personal credit score, our personal credit profile. We also can establish a corporate credit profile. It's referred to as our PAYDEX credit profile. P as in Paul, A-Y, D as in David, E-X, PAYDEX. Okay, so as you can see on the slide, what the personal FICO is to you as an individual is what the PAYDEX is to the LLC. Okay, now they're a little bit different inherently, just for the simple fact you're not just inherently given a PAYDEX credit profile. You have to go through an institution to establish it. Okay, it's not rocket science, but it's a process. They're also different how they're built, right? And let's touch base on the FICO briefly because I know you're familiar with it. Give us some bearings. So number one, as long as you have a social security number, you're inherently given a FICO credit profile. Okay, they're synonymous. If you have one, you have the other. Not only that, but how we build our personal FICO credit score: pay your bills back, pay your borrowers back, score improves, opportunity to borrow more at the FICO, right? The PAYDEX, being that it's unassociated with you on a personal level, they want you to prove your credibility prior to receiving capital. Okay, now, as you can see on the slide, these are the score ranges. So just to quickly go through this, PAYDEX ranges from a 1 through 100 rating. Okay, that's the overall score range. The goal for any business owner, 75 or higher. Okay, having a 75 at minimum on your PAYDEX is the equivalent of having a 780 on your FICO. Right? So excellent rating. Right? So at minimum, the goal is that 75 marker. And the reason that I say that that's the goal is once accomplished, you're what we refer to as is a self-sufficient business. Business is now walking and funding on its own 2 feet. You're utilizing corporate funds, business lines of credit, capital unassociated with you just personally.
So quick question for you. So is there a relationship between your PAYDEX and say a DUNS number, That's right.
So Dun& Bradstreet is the sanctioning body of the paydeck. I don't know who asked that question, but the equivalent would be is if you had to go through an actual institution
Yep.
to establish your FICO, that's what Duns is. Right
Okay.
now, Equifax, Experian, TransUnion, they all report to your paydecks. You need to go through D&B to get that initial paydex profile.
Okay. So done is to businesses what Experian is to, me personally.
No, no, no. So Experian is a reporting agency, right? Experian reports to your Paydex credit profile as well, right? Duns is the institution you have to go through just to establish the profile to begin with. Remember, FICO, you're given with the social. To get the Paydex, you got to go through Duns.
Got it. Got it.
Mhm.
Okay.
Right. And great question. Right. And the reason I also still say that 75 marker is the goal for any business owner is once accomplished, you're now a self-sufficient business. Business is now walking and funding on its own 2 feet, utilizing corporate funds, business lines of credit, capital unassociated with you personally. Right. You want to get away from being the personal bank to the business. More than that, get away from being solely personally financially liable for the business. Right? Double your financial resources. I know we're coming up here at the time, so I'm going to blow through just a couple more quick statements around this, and then I want to explain to you what Chris and Pat have been gracious enough to do for all of you on this webinar. Like I said, let's make complex topics simple. Double your financial resources. I would probably say if I were to send out a survey, the biggest fear of the fall that deters us from the jump is money, right? At the end of the day, right? A lot of us have families, children, mortgages. We have personal financial responsibilities that as long as there's going to be a contingency with my personal finances and my business, to Pat's point, that fall is going to be magnified. Double your financial resources, get away from being the personal bank to your business. How big is that fear now? It should be close to zero. I've told you how to make money by saving money with your business. And whether you actually, in the literal sense, go make money with your business, you're making money regardless by saving money. So making money by saving money out the gate, but also double your financial resources to get away from the personal bank to the business. So regardless what happens with the business, it doesn't affect you personally. Right? When I go do my business endeavors, and I don't.
Amen. Amen. Because you see that all the time. People, Pat had that, he's spending
I'm guilty.
business.
I'm guilty.
Yeah, I mean, I like to use you, sorry. But yes, and I when I learned, and I learned from you guys, from Prime, how to use corporate, credit cards, how to establish the line, because I do lending too. And I'm like, wow, it's open up like all the amount of money you can get if you follow the simple rules. It's amazing.
And money that's designed to be utilized for just business. It's advantageous. Let's just hurry over interest rates. Personal FICO, generally speaking, they start you out on a 0% interest rate for a promotional period.
Yeah.
6 to 12 months. After, chances are back to the national average, 18 to 24%. Personal FICO. Business Paydex, 0% interest rates, promotional periods on average, 15 to 30 months. After, on average, as low as 2% to 10%. Significantly lower. Business is about ROI, return on investment. Return just doesn't come instantaneously, right? Buying time isn't the most viable thing, paying 18 to 24%. It is paying 0% for 2 to 3 years. Right? Above all, you don't want that on your personal FICO, business Paydex. All right, so get away from the personal bank. Now, let me explain to you what Chris and Pat, once again, have been gracious enough to really make happen before the end of the year. That's another thing I want to say to Chris and Pat. Chris was very, very eager of making
Nick,
sure.
we can go over. That's not a problem. So because you speeding up.
And
Yeah,
I'll throw it down
no
a little bit.
problem. We can go over.
I'm
We can go.
also on a time crunch. I got an
Okay.
8 webinar, but
Okay.
they can
I
wait.
got to get to work, Pat.
And then you can't. Sometimes our partners they got to get the Grammy music going for me. Sometimes, if not, I'll be here all day. What that was the reason why I said Chris and Pat wanted to give them a quick shout out is they were beyond adamant about making this happen before you guys go to file your taxes. I didn't go over this because it wasn't a prompted question, but I want to go over it because it's one of those things that it's necessary to know regardless. A commonly asked question is, Nick, is there any way that I can still get credit for the different investments and expenses that I've made prior to having this LLC prior? So yes, absolutely. So we do a retroactive intent date with the LLCs that by default allow you to capture all investments and expenses for the complete calendar year of 2024 from a tax deductibility standpoint. So yes, everything by default's in play for the complete calendar year of 2024 from a tax deductibility standpoint. Okay, the reason why I just thought about that is Chris and Pat, they were very adamant that this happened before you guys go to file your taxes to ensure by simply having the proper corporate structure before you go to file your taxes, you can make money by saving money on your taxes. Okay. Now, what they've done is they've covered a consultation for all of you, right? In coinciding with Sub 2, right? Both of them, as you know, work hand in hand. So kudos to Pace as well as always. But
Yep.
they've covered a consultation for all of you to speak to one of my corporate advisors, right? So it's an hour-long consultation where they're going to be going over a lot of the topics that honestly we touched base on, but a little bit more in depth, a little bit more circumstantial based off of your circumstances. Okay, so they'll make sure that if you don't have the proper corporate structure, that you understand how to go about getting one. If you don't have a co-holding company, they'll make sure you understand how it fits into your corporate hierarchy, right? If you don't have a paid tax credit profile, they'll make sure you understand the fundamentals at minimum, how to go about establishing a corporate credit profile. It's as simple as just doing it, right? Double your financial resources. And then lastly, above all, we didn't have a whole lot of time today to go into this in great depths, but is the tax mitigation strategy side of things, right? By repurposing and reallocating certain aspects of your everyday life to be incorporated with your business, it will save you potentially thousands and thousands of dollars. If you don't have at minimum some type of tax mitigation strategy in place, make sure you book an appointment to speak to one of my tax advisors, right? There's a ton of different functions and provisions. Like I said, 70,000 pages of the tax code. We use one function that right out of the gate will save you 20% on your taxable income, right? So if you make 100, you only tax on 80. Bring in 50, you're taxed on 40. Okay. Now, with that being said, whenever I say tax strategy, a lot of times individuals are still kind of on that other side of like not making money with my business yet. Once again, who cares? Like, save money on your personal taxes. Make sure that you still have a tax strategy in place. Just because you're not making money with your business yet, it doesn't mean it's not equal, if not more value, right? So make sure you book your appointments. What Pat and Chris have done is they've also taken it one step further to ensure that all of you, at the very least, have the proper corporate structure that gives you the ability of what it is that we're doing, is taking care of what we refer to as a complementary LLC. Okay, now what that means is rather than paying the retail $1,660 for your LLC, all it is that you have to cover is the hard cost based off the filing fees in the state in which we structure your LLC out of, right? So once again, rather than the hard cost, well over $1,000, all it is you have to cover is the fees based off the state in which we structure your LLCs out of, right? So every state has different filing fees, but a couple hundred, a few $100 at absolute most, just depending on what state that you live, right? Or better yet, if you don't have a holding company, what haven state we're going to do it out of, which we'll give you a little bit of a teaser here. Wyoming, right? It's the cheapest. Not only that, but from a corporate standpoint, the haven states are identical, right? So there's no advantage of Delaware, Alaska, Nevada, Wyoming. They're identical. So we always recommend going with the cheapest, but we can do it anywhere. All right. Yep, we have registered agent. They'll go over all that. It's not an annual fee, Scott, for the registered agent. All right, they'll go over all that with you guys on that. So make sure you book your appointment. Like I said, now is the time, if you don't have the proper corporate structure, to get it at an absolute minimum level. Obviously, Chris, Pat, and also once again, Chris, Pat, big shout outs, guys. We do 65,000 plus corporate structures at a retail level a year, right? So to make sure that they made this happen before you go to file your taxes, to take it one step further and make sure that you guys have the proper corporate structure that can make you money by saving money. Talk about having mentors and community members that genuinely care about the success of their community, right? So I love it, guys, right? It's been awesome to be here. Get away from the personal bank, get your credit profiles, but book your appointments.
All right. Thank you, Nick.
Of
Thanks so much
course.
for your time. Yes.
Of course. It was an
Amazing.
absolute pleasure. We'll talk to you all soon. Thank
All right.
you. Bye.
Bye.
Oh,
You
All
know,
right.
it's just it's one of those things, guys. It's just, and I'll just say like my story is like I wish I would have known more about taxes. Like we were small business entrepreneurs, and every time we made money and I got excited just a little bit, when I go do my taxes, I'm paying, 20, 30, $40,000 in taxes, and it just crushes me. And I'm like, where did all this money go? Like, I don't get it. I don't get where all this money went. So it was a very hard lesson learned. It was a very, very hard lesson learned. And even still to this day, right? I know he ran out of time, but just even one of those questions, like, do we, as tax seasons are coming along, what is the time frame? Because a lot of times for us, we give up. We put up our hands and say, I'll go back to my old tax person. And they're not really deducting or getting the taxes that we need. I know that happens to everyone.
He said even if you filed, you can go back. They can go back and look at your taxes and redo it for you, in case you missed some tax advantages.
Exactly, exactly. Chris,
Yeah.
and then we got Melanie. Hey, Melanie. She's on mute. Find the mute button. I'm teasing.
There you go.
Okay, good morning. Good morning.
Good
Good
morning, Melanie. How are you?
morning.
So I am going to reach out to him because I have some questions too. So I have because of a few things that he said. So I'm just curious.
Yes.
Yes.
Melanie, thank you so much. No, I wanted to thank you because oh my gosh, guys, I had this you know, tenant thing that's going on, and I reached out to Melanie. She's been a big help. So no, I just wanted to thank you. We haven't had a chance to talk. You've been so busy. But I wanted to thank
And,
you about that with the
and
tenant.
I want to ask Melanie, now that we brought, somebody to kind of give us an idea, there's a consultation, guys. Take advantage of the link, go do a consultation with them. I started using them first for my lending business, and then now I'm doing for my real estate and doing my trust and everything. They are amazing. I'm kind of person that I like to pay for things so I don't forget, because down the line, if you have the right planning, you save more money, because like we all want to make a lot of money, but it's not only that, you want to get to keep a lot of money too.
That
So
is,
that's
yeah, that
where
is
the
important.
planning is so important. And I'm very serious about this
But but
now.
but Chris, what
And
he even said too about the money is that you actually save more money from the
it
get.
is.
You do, because I
Yeah.
know oh my gosh, taxes. All we do is pay taxes. Yes.
Yeah, and the planning, right, involved.
Yes.
And Melanie, do you think next week you can come on and kind of explain a little bit, maybe like what if we're buying a property as far as the closing, what we need to be aware as far as LLC, operating agreement, anything, like any angle that you can help us a little bit more?
Sure, be happy to. Makes my job easier.
Yes. Okay, good. Now that'd be great. So we have Melon next week talking about all of this. So we know and are prepared, because I know for us, it's always like, okay, you need to have an operating agreement. And then, what we need to do as far as paperwork to get to the closing with no issues for the LLC.
Yes, that's correct. Guys, what do you so just some things. We have our live meetup, right, Chris? Our live meetup's going to be April 1st, this coming up April. And that's going to be at the same place. It's going to be in Roswell. It's April 1st. Do you guys have any questions in terms of like for the future Zooms that you guys want to have in topics, all right? Last week you guys told us you guys wanted to hear about corporate structures, so we brought the corporate structures LLCs and we kind of added that to it this week.
Hey, real quick, Pat, cautionary
Okay.
tale here. Be careful of some of that advice.
Yes.
So my CPA, she's a partner at her firm here in Atlanta. I've known her since I was in high school. Um, Writing off business startup expenses against your personal income, it generally uh, my CPA would say you actually need to have made a profit in your business. Now you can hold those taxes until the year. You can hold those startup write-offs. There's also the nuance that I've learned from a tax lawyer who will say if you're a gator only lending, if you've got passive investments, even if you own properties and you own them and you've got property managers, it's very passive. You don't get all the write-offs. Like a gator, who's only gathering lending funds, they're paying a lower tax rate on those funds.
You
And
know,
they don't get to write off the gas mileage. They don't get to write off the meals.
but Doug, that's oh my gosh, that's a whole topic, right?
It
That's
is.
subjective. It's subjective because every accountant and CPA say something different. I'm telling you because
Yeah.
I've gone through and I've
Oh,
asked quite a few people. I know people that do it to I'm going to call it from one extreme, and I know people who do it who are tax accountants that do it from the opposite extreme. So
yeah.
that's a very gray area, I would say, because I've seen people who write off everything, and I've seen people who write off nothing
Yep.
from the
It
same, like they're
absolutely
all,
is.
yes,
So
yes,
if somebody's new and green, truly everybody says it. Work with your CPA, work with your tax person. It's true. Everybody's situation is different. Just
yes,
know
yes,
that that wasn't gospel spilled out
yes,
just now.
yes, yes. No, no, no. I think I'm aware of that, but you're right. But everybody has to make sure they take their own approach because everyone has a slightly different approach to those things. I like, I'll tell you from my experience. So I come from the small business world, but I also come from the world of, I'm going to call it immigrants. I come from the world of where, man, everything we do is on the creative realm, right? The creative realm is like that's where it's like they push everything to the limit until they can't push it, right? And then I've seen the other opposite war where it's like everything is too extreme. So I think if we can find a happy medium, at least for me, I'm going to try to find a happy medium where it's just going to be best because I've lost so much money by paying so much taxes because I didn't get the right advice, and that is by, I'm going to say, very seasoned accountants that just could have told me, hey, if you would have gone in and got a rental property and got this and got that, I could have took that, $30,000 of taxes and just put it into a rental property and could have had that write-off and could have saved that taxes. For an example, I'm just kind of putting things out there from that angle. But you're right. You just have to kind of understand, but everyone is different. I've gone through a lot of accountants and everyone's different. It's really kind of one of those things where you're going to have to, it's up to you, right? It's up to you and how much limits you can take in that standpoint.
Yep. At least have an accountant you can throw under the bus if you get audited.
Yes. Some accountants don't care, and some accountants care extreme, so yes.
Well, and they
Well,
can at least go, yeah, my bad. And you can move on and deal with an audit through a different accountant,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. No,
Somebody
good
somebody
point.
was going to say something.
yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm an accountant, I'm a tax accountant, not for personal, but for mutual funds. But I mean, there are the tax law is the tax law, but sometimes there are gray areas, and some people just push the envelope a little bit, and some people are a little bit shy of pushing that envelope. So the thing is, as well, is that I can't remember what the point I was going to make. About some people, okay, there's some people that just prepare taxes, and there's other people that are actually tax planners, tax strategists. And so somebody that's just going to, like, Pat, to your point, where somebody's like, you could have taken all these deductions and you didn't, that was probably more of a tax preparer where they don't know the true ins and outs of the tax law. And so they were not strategizing for you. So you need a tax strategist to help you plan for those things, like, okay, if I want to pay less taxes, I have to buy a house this year, things like that. So there's different levels of tax, and a CPA they could just be a preparer, or they could be a tax strategist. You just kind of have to ask the questions and know a little bit about kind of like what they do and what
Exactly,
their
exactly.
realm is. Because even
Yes,
if you're a CPA, some people just prepare taxes and that's all they do, where others are actually tax strategists and planners, which is totally different. And they're the ones that actually help you find those deductions and things like that.
exactly, exactly. I mean,
Yeah.
we know investors that pretty much they write off their entire vacation, they write off all their dinners, they
Hmm.
write off all their gas, and they're opposite. And yeah, they've been doing this for 20 years, and then there's other
Hmm.
ones that are
Yeah.
just, for me, it's learning it from the people who are doing it often, that are doing it in the realm of real estate investing, in the realm of like how can I
Right.
save the most money? Because at the end of the day, I don't know, guys. The older I get, I'm like, you know what I have to lose? Like at the what I have to lose, like I'd rather save money instead of pay those taxes. Like, it is what it is.
No,
So
the risk is not to do anything for being afraid of doing things, right? And then when it's time comes, like, wow, I should have done this. When you pay more taxes, when you finally make money, see all your money being paid in taxes. So start the process, go out there, meet with people, meet with different CPAs, because I know from my own experience, it's frustrating. And sometimes it's like you're trying to run a business, but if you don't take care of the things that are going to make whatever you make better, it's frustrating. And start with a CPA, and then if you don't like, ask the right questions, and then go to somebody else. But do not take the risk. The risk, if you stay still and don't do anything, that's not the way to do it. It's just Prime came in. They are giving everybody some time to do a consultation. Take advantage of that. You know what I mean? See how it feels. Start something. If you don't like, you're not married to them. Go to somebody else. At least you start learning. I learned a lot with them. I started doing business with them 2 years ago, and I'm learning a lot. And I still got to do a lot more planning and stuff like that. Get better with my finances.
Yes, and you get an hour of consultation, so at least
But I
take a
did.
minute.
I had my paydex for my business. I'm able, to get a lot of money for my business credit. I mean, it opens up your mind a lot, guys. Don't get analysis paralysis. Meet with them and take action.
But
And
I would say from my
no,
personal side, and I know we got a hand raised, but I would say my first side, guys, I would rather say, because it's knowledge, right? I'd rather say, oops, this is me. Don't take my advice if you can't take it. I would say, oops, I didn't know. But I would rather save I would rather not pay and make the mistake and ask for forgiveness than to overpay. So I would always, from what I've learned over the years, I'm always going to underpay for taxes.
Animals that stay still in the jungle get eaten.
yep.
Right?
Yes, yes. Hey, Anthea.
Hi, it's me. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good.
Welcome.
Remember what you learned at Aspire about the Robs.
Yes.
So don't forget all about that stuff, because then you don't have to take the deductions,
I think so guys, Anthea is she's with Aspire. Tell them a little bit about the Robs, because that is a different angle too
Yeah, I
compared
mean,
to
it
just
really depends, like if it's right for someone or not. But there's a lawyer, John Heyer. He has videos about it, and he teaches about it. You can follow him on like his socials and stuff. But now he works like exclusively with Eddie and Andrew at Aspire. So you can't like hire him or anything. But yeah, it's the rollover business startup. And you basically open a C Corp, a new C Corp, and then you open a new 401k, and then you roll over previous 401k money or a traditional IRA, but not Roth IRA. And then you take the Roth 401k money, you purchase 98% of the shares of your own C Corp. So then when you do business activities, new business, not an existing business, startup business, a new business. And like, let's say if the business made $1 million that year, you can pay yourself a W-2. You're not required to pay a W-2, but you can. You could pay yourself a W-2. Let's say you paid yourself $100,000, you would pay personal tax on that. And now the C Corp has $900,000 that it pays the corporate tax flat rate of 21%. Now it has $720,000. 98% of that would go back in the tax-free Roth 401k and never be taxed ever again. And you can buy real estate directly from the 401k.
so it's the legal way of moving money without paying taxes.
You pay the
It's best.
taxes. You pay the
Yes.
taxes once, and then they legally go back in the Roth 401k where you'll never pay taxes ever again. And a 401k can also borrow money to purchase or renovate real estate and not pay any tax on money it made from borrowed money.
Yeah, avoiding the U-bit.
It will not have U-bit, exactly. You can do that in an
Right.
IRA as well, but you would pay U-bit. In a 401k, you wouldn't pay U-bit for
Right.
purchasing or renovating real estate with borrowed money.
Yeah, the
So
401k being more powerful.
yeah, but the idea is that the ROBs, you do pay your taxes once in your C Corp, and then there's no limit on how much you can get in a tax-free account, because it's not a contribution, it's a dividend flow to shareholders. So there's not a limit amount.
Yeah,
So
just
people
like John Bowen says, pay taxes on the seed, not the crop.
Yeah,
Pay
well,
your
that's for
damn taxes.
contributions. That's regarding contributions. This is like there's no contribution at all happening in this system.
Well, you technically are. You're paying your 21% corporate tax.
Yeah,
You're paying your taxes. You're not trying to go broke to zero every single year and
exactly. You're not
wondering
trying to take
where
deductions at
you're
all.
at.
Yeah,
This is how you get that long term. Then you buy the rental properties with these retirement funds, and
Mhm.
you're never trying to figure out how to 1031 exchange out of
Exactly.
stuff. You
You
don't
guys sound like you
care.
both in Aspire.
Uh-huh. I'm just learning so much from them. Like I really
Yeah,
tried to
yeah,
learn as much as possible, but
yeah.
it's like blown my mind. It's so amazing and so useful. So I just wish more people who actually could use it. Like I'm still new to all of this, but all the people that I meet, like you guys who have so many businesses going on, I like hope that you guys can utilize the knowledge, you know?
This sounds
Yeah,
like another Zoom we're gonna have to do, another topic of Zoom we have to do. Because it is
yeah.
so much information. It is a lot of information.
Yeah.
I need
Yes.
to talk to both of you guys. Yeah, 100%. Because
Yeah, like anybody who's running an S corp, to me, you got to be putting the money into your IRA, and you want pre-tax money. If you're targeting a Rob structure, it's got to be pre-tax. It actually can't be Roth.
What do you
It's got
mean?
to be um, even a 401k. So Rob's is a 401k structure. It's got to be traditional pre-tax dollars. It actually can't be Roth
That's not true.
post-tax
I
dollars.
mean, if it comes from an IRA, it has to be traditional. But if it's rolled over from a 401k, it can be either. That's because a Roth IRA can never go back to 401k, but a 401k
Right.
can just roll over to another 401k. So it can already be Roth money in that case. It's okay.
so an SDIRA might also play in this space as well.
Any traditional
Yes.
IRA can roll over to any 401k, but a Roth IRA can never roll over to 401k. And then when you have your 401k in your new C Corp, you want to make sure that it's Roth money before you buy the shares. So you either already had 401k Roth money that you rolled over, or you had traditional that you're just going to pay the taxes on, and then buy the shares with the Roth 401k money.
Yeah, before you even get to worrying about a Rob structure, just if you have an S corp, if you have enough to max out the IRA funds, max out the IRA funds. If you have even more money and it's like, hey, I'm making an extra $70,000 a year, I got to figure out how to go find deductibles for. Take a look at doing a solo 401k for yourself. And that way, you're gonna pay the taxes. You're gonna take a W-2 hit, but you're gonna pay taxes on the seed. Now you can go back and invest those dollars time and time again and never pay taxes on those dollars again.
So this is where probably a tax strategist could really help
Yeah,
you.
this is very like this. Keep in mind, was a 3 day. This was a 3 day education here.
It's
Right.
been
Yeah,
since, what do you
yeah,
mean three
but
days? It's been
it's
since
the
May. It's
Yes.
been 10
at the
months.
yeah, at the moment, it's just getting the awareness out there so that people go, hey, I'm making a ton of money and I keep trying to figure out how to go to zero. And it's like some people are going to tell you, you can write off, hey, if you're building all this branding, logoed stuff that you're wearing, you can write that off. And it's like, hey, unless it looks like what Prince is wearing on stage, no, you can't.
Yes, we should do this,
So,
guys. Maybe we'll set this up as another, a
yeah,
longer podcast, and we can kind of go over it a little bit more
Yeah.
and go into these.
yeah.
It is
Anyway,
great stuff. I love it. I mean, it's amazing
the
stuff.
awareness is the starting point.
Exactly, exactly.
And don't be scared of paying some taxes so you can avoid. I can sit here, I can make investments with my IRA and fund your guys' deals, and I get 12, 15, 18 points back. And that's tax free for life. And I'll do it again and again and again and never pay a penny of taxes. And I'm almost 59 and a half, so it just doesn't matter.
Show off.
All right, guys. What else? What else you guys want to bring up before we come to an end here? Let's see here. Chris, are you still there? Do you guys have what do you guys think? I guess anything so because you guys brought that topic to us and we brought that the topic here. You guys like the topic? What do you guys think? What are some things that you guys want to hear about on our coming up Zooms?
And that anything about saving money, and even like that deep dive on this Rob's thing or whatever was really, really exciting. Um,
We
yeah,
are
yeah.
I'm in the process of we're gonna do another Zoom that's not a Friday Zoom, but it's gonna be kind of in the week. And I want to hear what you guys are just want to hear some kind of some I'm gonna throw some things out there. We're thinking about doing like a office hour deal maker slash coaching call, right? To talk about kind of business and cash flow and real estate business and things like that. I want to know if that's something that you guys would be interested in, or just kind of it would be more of like a panel, we come in and it's like, hey, what is, like here's the business. How can I, or this is my ideas, how can I kind of twist and turn things a little bit? Um, because right now, we talk about earlier in that comment, talk about okay, the fear, the jump, the fall, and the pivot of things, right? So what we're gonna do before the end of the quarter, which it is coming up pretty fast, either before or in the next, probably in the next like 3 weeks, we're gonna have the Zoom going back to the goal setting Zoom, right? So what have we done for the beginning of our goals, where are we at now, at the end of the quarter, and how do we pivot and how do we change? So that we're already going to have. What do you guys think about just that? The idea of having like maybe it's like a coaching call. I don't know if that's the right term I would use, but it would be more like a panel, maybe a Zoom, maybe a podcast type style deal. Because I know that overall right now, as the real estate is the way it is now, what we're looking for, not what we're looking for, but what everyone's looking for, right? How do I cash flow? What do I need to do? Where is the cash? How do I save money? Those are all the hard things that we all deal with. So just to give you guys like a quick example, these are the something that we always talk about in the people that I talk to on a daily basis is like, okay, right now we're at we're at the bottom in terms of what we hope is would be the bottom of our real estate, right? It's the slowest time that we've ever seen in real estate out there. So where are we? What do we do? What do we do as a community? Where do we go from here? How do we prepare ourselves to get ready, you know, for the slingshot to come back when it starts to raise up again? So those are some ideas that I think would be good for us as a community to brainstorm, but we need community involvement. We need you guys to say, hey, come on stage or come onto the platform. Let's talk about where you are stuck. What are the challenges?
I'll tell you what I want to learn from like you specifically, Pat, because you're doing it, is the sub two, the actual buying of the sub two. Because we were so close the other week, right?
Yes, yes.
And it was my first time. I'm really going to learn it when I'm trying to take action on it and going, okay, how much money do I really need to have in tow? How long do I need to have that money? And how much money am I going to leave behind in the property each time when I go to buy one? What's best case? What's worst case? So that I can go, okay, here's how much I need to have in my pocket.
It's and I'll say a little bit about it because I want to add it to, probably like the next Zoom. But I think
Yeah.
it's going back to what we said at the very beginning. It's the fear. It's the fear of jumping, right? The anticipation and the fear is hard, is worse than the actual jump. Because when we jump, it's not that bad. And I'll say that because when it comes to sub two guys, like even right now, like that fear has creeped back up to me again. And I'm like, okay, right now I gotta find deals, right? It is right now, I don't know what's gonna sell, what's not gonna sell, what's gonna flip, what's not gonna flip. That stuff but I've done it time and time again. But at the same time, it's like, and this is same, and I'll say this, I come from the small business world, which I've had, a dozen small businesses that I've opened, failed, opened, failed, opened, failed, opened, failed, opened, failed, right? Fail, 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 and then keep moving forward, right? So, but so with that being said, in terms of the sub two deals, it's at the end of the day, if I say the same thing you guys talk about with the Robs and things like that, at the end of the day, if I know that I can buy real estate, right? I can come to the community, I can borrow money, or I can use, a let's say a club to advance in buying a real estate. What is the worst case scenario in terms of what we can do with the property? we're amazingly smart people here, right? Everyone has studied. Everyone we're moving as a community, as a group. If we all take a look at it and we say, hey, this sub two deal here, what if I'm putting in, let's just say, for example, 30,000, what is the worst case that's going to happen on this particular sub two deal, right? I could rent it out. I could lose money on it, right? But how much will I lose? And what is the worst case scenario? The way I see it is that I like to hit three different points in terms of real estate when I do make a purchase, right? Where I get cash flow, where it appreciate, can I get a tax deduction on it, right? So those are the three basic ones, part of it. But at the end of the day, if you do, like Abraham always says, hey, if it doesn't go long term, don't do it, right? But at the end of the day, if it does go long term, if that property loses, and I'm speaking like this is exactly what's happening to me now, right? If I'm losing $200 a month in cash flow because it's long term, but I'm gaining 50,000 in 2 years of appreciation and also tax write off, does that still make a difference? And I think that's the safety net that I believe in sub two and in real estate and property, because we have insurance. Insurance will cover the property, right? We have tax write-off that will also help out. But also at the same time, if I think the same fear that I've talked about in real estate before, it's like, especially with agents and things like that, like we have the fear of holding back and saying, oh, I want a $10,000 deduction, or I want a $5,000 this. And then we will turn down a deal with a difference of $5,000 but at the same time, we can save that in taxes, going back to, this CPA and accounting and things like that, and taxes. But at the same time, the appreciation in 3 years is going to exceed 50,000. So if we lose that on a yearly basis, what about the bigger picture? Does that make sense? Does that help out a little bit, Doug? Did that answer your question?
Yes, and certainly a bigger conversation.
Yes.
Because without the cash flow, now somebody needs to be ready. They need to have excess income and know that it's predictable and repeatable to sustain a negative cash flow property.
That's correct. Yes.
So there's a lot of moving parts when it comes to that one.
Yes, but if you have
bigger.
Yeah, but if you have those already and you see, that's why we don't buy all properties, right? I don't buy all properties. But as I'm doing it, I mean, there's so many exit strategies to it. And then we're adding midterm, and then we're adding co-living. So there's so many exit strategies for it. I mean, I wouldn't buy everywhere, I wouldn't buy somewhere where that I think, it's less population. And that's where the math comes in and where we have to decide. But yes, it is a big conversation, but I'm hoping that answer a lot of your questions in terms of my thought process and what I would buy, whether it's, sub two or not. And I still think that we still have a shortage, and there's still a need out there. There's a need out there for housing. There's a need out there for housing if you can offer a good enough product. Hey, Martha, I wanted to not ignore you there.
Hey, Pat. Well, talking about the sub two, I didn't want to go too long because I know you want to end, but I wanted to ask you, because on the sub two situation, I have been in the market for a property in whether Florida or North Carolina, but I have a wholesaler who sent me a property in West Palm Beach, great property and everything, but the situation that he was offering me, it had a great percentage, 4.3%, and the guy was 485, but then the property it is in a down market in Fort Lauderdale. I mean, for West Palm Beach or South Florida. So the property was worth the same price that it was 2 years ago, 485, what the guy bought it for. And so and then and it was a owner financing, and the owner wanted also to take over the payments of the rest of the loan of 330, no, 380, 390, sorry,
Okay.
390. And then he also wanted a owner financing of $85,000 at 2% for 10 years. So I'm thinking, this deal sounds great, but then again, the market is going down, not up. I mean, it doesn't look like it. I mean, I know as an Airbnb, it could make a lot of money, but still, the value of the property is depreciating, not appreciating. So
No,
how would I know that?
so the depreciation, right? So, Trump speaks of, and I'm not going to go politics, but just to make a small piece of it. Like Trump speaks of like he wants to recorrect it, right? So the recorrection means, what does that mean? Like, I think since the pandemic has hit, we've been at an all-time, it spiked up, right? A little bit. But now we're at a low. How much lower, like just in general, what do you guys think out there? All 30 of us up here, how much lower do we think it's going to go, right? How much lower is that going to go? It may be a small percentage, but I think it's going to dip, but then it's going to swing right back up. I think it's going to be the 2008 kind of similar, deal. So I don't think it's going to go that much lower. So how much lower can that go, right? So I think that's what you have to kind of see. But my bigger
Well,
question is,
but some
what
markets,
do you want to do with the property? How do you want to exit out? I think it's the bigger question,
well, I
right?
want to hold it. I want to hold it and keep it as an Airbnb that is in a good location and it's going to make a lot of money. But then again, I'm just worried. Here I am. South Florida was already overpriced by 35-40% above everybody else, and that's where my big question is, do I invest in South Florida or other markets in outside of South Florida that maybe not as dipping so hard as South Florida is?
And I've heard
Or
the
I
same
go
thing.
into North Carolina and stick to a mountain property or something like
Yes.
that?
So it would depend. So see, this is what I think. These are the stuff that I think we should discuss. Like in that's what I said. Like in maybe the coaching or deal maker Zoom. I don't know. I'm just brainstorming with it, because these
Uh-huh.
are good information, right? But I think my bigger question is, so first off, what I would ask you is like, what? So I asked you about your exit strategy, and then also, what is the PITI?
The PITI on that was 3126
So 31. Okay, 3126. Okay, and that's
plus
in
403 insurance on the house, flood insurance
okay.
a month.
Yeah, that's good. I'm sure that's killing you again.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I
what's
mean,
scary.
I don't know the South Florida market, so it's a little bit harder to say. And then how many bedrooms is it?
3 bedrooms, 2 baths.
Okay, so it's not that big, right?
It's totally redone. It's turnkey with a pool and everything. It was gorgeous.
So the other question that I would ask myself is that how many people are moving to Florida if they did what's that property taxes that the governor is trying to do, right? Are there more fluctuation of people moving to it, right? Because everyone's still moving to the South. They're still moving from New York, California, and out west, and all these other places. They're still
There's
moving
a
to the
lot,
South.
a lot leaving too, because of after the 2 hurricanes that hit Florida, there's a lot of people that left, that are leaving. And plus the taxes. I mean,
Yes,
plus the
insurance.
insurance.
Yeah, the insurance. Yes, that's what it's been. I mean, this. I don't have an. I'm not sure. So to
Yeah,
be honest
that's
with you,
what
'cause
I'm saying. Sub two is like it's like low hanging fruit, but then do you bite it or not?
and then from my experience, that there's a lot less deals and sub twos out there at the moment. Um, because with sub twos now, I think more and more people are. More realtors are accepting it, right? I'm seeing a lot more sub twos out there. I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. I see a lot more sub twos out there, but they're not good deals, right? They're just agents, mostly agents saying, okay, we'll sub to this property. Let me get all my commission, and they're keeping the price higher. So it's things that are on market, and then wholesalers are bringing me deals they're not deals. They're the only thing they're willing to do is do sub two because they're going to lose that property regardless. So I have seen a lot more of that. I haven't seen too many. Um, like good sub two deals out there lately. I know they're still out there. And right now, at least from my experience right now, I think that the people that are the deals right now, to me, and I'm going to hear from you guys there, are a lot slimmer, right? They're not out there. But at the same time, we hear that foreclosure is going to go skyrocket and things are going to, the deals are out there, but I'm not seeing it lately. And I'm saying lately in the past 2 months.
I really would like to learn a lot more about sub two with you guys, because there's so many moving parts with that I just don't understand. I've kind of found my niche, I think, in the building space right now. And so trying to do the concept's called BTR, and you build to rent or build
Yes.
to lease, right? And if you think about it, kind of like a contract for deed, if your tenant doesn't perform, well, okay, you just rinse and repeat, right? And so, yeah, I definitely need to get together with you guys and learn a lot more around sub twos and how it works because it 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 goes over my head every time.
The biggest thing we've seen right now, guys, I'm gonna have to end it soon, but the biggest thing we see right now is what most of what my partner is leaning through with Christiani is that co-living. So in terms of co-living, we, right now we have six co-living that we are either own or either manage. And I've never seen such a fast growth of co-living. Like it's every single day. Like right now, all of us are hesitant about how we're gonna move, how we're gonna pivot with the economy and real estate right now. But that co-living, I mean, like, like one of the ladies said there, like we had 4 bookings in one day. We're filling up 9 bedroom houses. Things are filling up so fast because there's still a shortage in housing and people still need a good place to go to, a comfortable place to go to. That's what we've seen, like extremely. And that's another topic that we can bring up there. But yeah, so that's what we've seen out there. But it's the exit strategy. I think there's still deals out there. But I think the most important thing is how can you exit? Can you borrow that money to buy that property? And if you borrow that money, when you have to pay it back, do you have to pay it back within a year? If you pay it back within a year, is that property going to pay you back within the year? And what are the implications of that? So there's a lot of different angles. I think we can talk about it, but that's why I wanted to kind of have another Zoom outside of our Friday Zoom and just kind of do more of like a deal maker coaching call and things like that. So, but guys, it is 10:40. So thank you so much, everyone. We'll talk to you guys soon.
Take it easy, guys.
Happy weekend, guys. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.